what's up, everybody? This is the Spell Basketball Podcast with your host, Aslan Williams. And man, we got a few things to talk about. But before we get started, first of all, I just want to give all honor and glory to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I am so grateful for him just to be here. I just thought about it the other day, and I used to do that a lot, but I hadn't been doing it. So it's time to get back to doing that. But let's talk about what's going on recently. All right. First of all, hit the like and subscribe button. I'd appreciate it. We're growing at a rapid rate. So help me get to 500 subscribers. I appreciate y'all very much. So, but we're talking about a few things today. We are going to be talking about, first of all, congratulations to the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks won the championship, a couple weeks ago. And, although I wanted to go about seven games, and it ended up being a 5-game, almost gentleman's sweep for the New York Knicks. But that was one of the best series, despite the record of the series. That was one of the best series that we've seen in quite some time. So again, congratulations to the New York Knicks, Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, who had that miraculous tip in game 4 to, go ahead and put the Knicks up 3-1 and just send New York into a frenzy. So excited for the Knicks. If you're a basketball fan, you just have to be excited for the New York Knicks. Not 73 year. The last time they won was in 73, 53-year drought from winning an NBA championship. And so I'm hyped for the New York Knicks. I really am. I think they were the most deserving team. A lot of people are saying they don't think they were the better team in that series. They clearly think that. I saw some, on ESPN, they're talking about they thought OKC is still a better team in the entire NBA due to the injuries. It was kind of tough for them to kind of figure that out. But I still think, this is my personal opinion, I really do think that the Spurs still probably could have beaten Oklahoma City Thunder even if the Thunder were fully healthy. Now, J-Dub, AJ Mitchell, 2 huge pieces for the Thunder. And so we're not knocking what they can do, what they bring to the court. But I still think that the Thunder just didn't have an answer for Wemby. And so we'll talk about the draft a little bit here in a second, what the Thunder just got in the draft, which I thought was a great pickup. But again, this is all about the New York Knicks this year. Congratulations to the 2026 NBA champions, the New York Knicks. All right. Now, we saw a couple of trades. We saw one of the biggest trades happen early on. That trade being the early on trade being that Julius Randle was traded to the Brooklyn Nets. All right. So last year we saw Michael Porter Jr. really shine with the Brooklyn Nets, and I believe he has help now. We'll also talk about who the Brooklyn Nets drafted here shortly. But I think Michael Porter has a little bit of help now. It's going to be quite interesting. Where do the Minnesota Timberwolves go from here? That kind of puts Naz Reid into that starting lineup, which I think it would be a good fit in the starting lineup, considering the type of player that Naz Reid is. And so I'm excited to see that. I think this also kind of gives Anthony Edwards more of a superstar role. Not that he's already not a superstar. Let's not get that twisted, because Anthony Edwards definitely is. But I think this is going to put the ball more in his hands. But I also think this is a good move for Julius Randle going to the Brooklyn Nets and, being alongside Michael Porter Jr. I'm excited to see what that's going to look like. I don't think the Nets will be as bad as they were last year, but, they also, part of that trade ended up sending Nick Claxton, I believe, to Chicago. So we'll see what happens with the Brooklyn Nets next year. But that was the first big trade of this offseason so far. But let's talk about the biggest trade this offseason, which we all have been waiting for. And yes, Giannis Antetokounmpo is no longer a Milwaukee Buck. He is now headed to South Beach, where he will be part of the Heat culture down there in Miami, where he is now part of the Miami Heat. So this trade, some of the details of this trade, entered some picks, but also sent Tyler Hero, Jaime Jaquez, and Khalil Ware over to Milwaukee. As for Milwaukee to Miami, included Bobby Portis and Giannis Antetokounmpo. So I think the Bucks are definitely in their rebuilding stage again. You're getting rid of a 2-time MVP, an NBA champion, brought a championship to the Milwaukee Bucks after years back in 2021. So I think, it was just time for that marriage to break up with Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks. But you look at what the Miami Heat have now. You have Norman Powell, you have Bam Adebayo, you have Giannis Antetokounmpo. So they're looking pretty well. I'm just trying to see how they're going to run that that Giannis and Bam tandem down there. Do you run Bam at the center? Because Giannis being 6'10", 6'11", still he's not a center. He's like a point forward. And so, how do you run that? I'm just interested in seeing how that's really going to work. I do think it's going to open up the floor more for Bam, with just all the attention that Giannis brings to the paint, as well as just in general of who Giannis is. But I'm excited to see what's going to happen. It definitely shakes up the East a little bit. I still have the Knicks next year as the favorites based off of the camaraderie that they had this year. Still waiting on a couple player options to see what's going to happen with Landry Shamet, as well as Jose Alvarado moving forward with the New York Knicks. But I still think I have the Knicks as the favorites, going into next year in the Eastern Conference. So I'm very excited to see that. But yeah, Giannis trade, huge. Giannis is now part of that Heat culture down there in Miami, down in South Beach. And so we'll see what happens with that. And so, next we're going to talk about the NBA draft. Again, last night was round 1. So we're going to go over the top 10 picks and kind of give a little sample of what I think is going to happen, how the picks, how they fit their teams that they were drafted to, and who I think is going to have the biggest impact. But before we get to that, we have a quick restaurant commercial, first of all. One of my favorite Mexican restaurants out here in Denver, Colorado. So we're going to play this real quick, and then we'll be right back. And we're back. That is Chihuahuas out here in Denver, Colorado, right off Chambers and Green Valley Ranch Boulevard. So good. It's one of my favorite spots to eat. So y'all go check them out. Go support. I grew up there at that restaurant. So y'all go support them. They're like my family. But again, very good, authentic Mexican food. So you feeling the taste for that? Go on and head over there. That is Chihuahuas over in the Montbello area, right off Chambers and Green Valley Boulevard. So go support my family over there. All right. Now let's go on and hop into the next topic here. We're talking about the NBA draft, which got underway last night. The second round is kind of going on right now, finishing up. But NBA draft, man, I love every move. There was one move in particular that really did surprise me, that I was surprised that actually happened. But let's go on and talk about it. At the number 1 pick, we had AJ DeBonsa out of BYU go to the Washington Wizards. I thought that was the best fit for them. I know, Trae Young had opted out of his contract, but he's expected to sign a 4-year contract with the Washington Wizards. And so, I didn't think they necessarily needed a point guard, where we have a heavy point guard draft this year. And so I thought if Trae Young didn't resign, that's where you would have gone after a Darren Peterson. But with Trae Young re-signing with the Washington Wizards, I thought the AJ DeBonsa pickup was the perfect move for them. You can have Trae Young at the 1, have AJ at the 3. Granted that everybody stays healthy. Anthony Davis there. You have Alex Sarr down there. I mean, you have a really young nucleus down in Washington. And so with the veteran presence that they have, along with drafting AJ DeBonsa at that number 1 spot, I definitely think that was the right move for them. Now, at the number 2 spot, we had who could have went number 1. And let me talk about this real quick. This draft in particular was one of those drafts where I felt like there were 4 players that could have gone number 1. I'm talking about AJ DeBonsa. I'm talking about Darren Peterson. Talking about Cameron Boozer. And I'm talking about, come on, bro. Hold on. Let me get the name right real quick, because we're going to talk about him in just a second. Caleb Wilson. I'm so sorry. Caleb Wilson out of North Carolina. Those are, and there's even some players down here that, I look at the type of skill that Darius Acuff has, and I'm just like, he could have gone number 1, too, depending on what these teams needs. But before I go on to the other picks, I did think each team filled what they needed for this draft. And there was such a heavy draft with so much talent that I truly do believe that, each team got what they wanted, right? So at number 2, the Utah Jazz draft Darren Peterson, all right, which I love that lineup. I was looking at the potential lineup for that. Last year, they drafted Ace Bailey at the number 5 pick. Ace he didn't have an amazing year, but toward the end of the season, he definitely started to find his rhythm. And so I'm looking at, Ace Bailey kind of stepping into a more important role in his second season in Utah. But if you look at that first starting lineup for Utah, you have Keontae George, who's a bucket. I love Keontae George's game. At number 2, you got Darren Peterson. 3, you can run Ace Bailey. You got Lauri Markkanen at the 4, which Lauri Markkanen, again, I believe should have been an all-star last season, averaging 27 points a game. But then you have Jaren Jackson Jr. at the center. So they have some very interesting pieces over there. And I thought the Darren Peterson pickup was definitely needed for them. So the number 3 pick, we have Cameron Boozer out of Duke. I know I think it was Jay Billis last night was just saying that he really thought Cameron Boozer was the best overall all-around player in the draft last night. And I love Cameron Boozer's game. Very strong in the post. Can knock down the 3 if he's open. He's not a knockdown like 3, like you're going to get it to him every time to take the 3, but he can make the shot. Great post presence, great passing ability as well in Cameron Boozer. So I'm excited to see that. But he goes to the Memphis Grizzlies. I didn't even mention the team. He goes to the Memphis Grizzlies. The Grizzlies are still having that debacle, trying to figure out what they're going to do with Ja Morant. If Ja decides to stay, I kind of think that is over with too. But hey, people's hearts can change. You never know. But if Ja decides to stay in Memphis, or we'll find that out, I think that would be a nice little tandem down there with Ja Morant and Cameron Boozer. But we'll see what happens. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done in Memphis. But congratulations to Cameron Boozer, number 3 pick, going to the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, at the 4 pick, this is what I was just talking about. I can't believe I forgot bro's name, but forgive me. But Caleb Wilson out of North Carolina is drafted to the Chicago Bulls. Now, the Chicago Bulls are, going through a few changes, just getting a new head coach, just really trying to find their, piece together. They have a really great player down there in Josh Giddey. Josh Giddey's a great point guard. So I think adding a young Caleb Wilson, very athletic, great rebounder, has great mid-range to 10 feet in scoring presence. And so I think that's a great pickup for Chicago as they're trying to figure out their stuff. You really haven't heard from or seen what Chicago can do. They did the DeRozan, Zach LaVine thing, but that was as close as they've gotten since Derrick Rose in the Bulls teams back in the early 2010s. So we'll see what's going on with that. But the number 5 pick, the Los Angeles Clippers, right? The Los Angeles Clippers draft Keaton Wagler out of Illinois. Keaton Wagler, great scorer. Had a 46-point game earlier this year playing for Illinois against Purdue. So he's a good scorer. He's a great shooter. And so I think that's something that the Clippers do need, coming up, whether he's starting, coming off the bench. The Clippers are kind of going through an identity thing, trying to figure out what they're going to do. On paper, they look great last year, having James Harden, bringing over Brook Lopez, John Collins. James Harden was there for a little bit, but got traded for Darius Garland. Darius Garland, great point guard in the league. And, of course, your all-star Kawhi Leonard. So we'll see what happens with the Clippers. Can't expect too much, but we'll see if they have a better year next year. Now, this is the pick that really surprised me. I'll be completely honest. The Brooklyn Nets at the number 6 pick draft Mikal Brown Jr. Out of Louisville, and Mikal Brown is a baller. Let me not say that. I just thought with Darius Acuff being available and the Brooklyn Nets needing a type of scoring point guard, I thought that's where they were going to go. So I was actually very surprised with this pick in Mikal Brown Jr., but also, again, a great pick. This is one of the most loaded, talented drafts that I've seen in a long time. A lot of people are saying since 96 with Kobe, Nash, Ray Allen, Allen Iverson, that type of draft where it was loaded, right? So just named all Hall of Famers right there in just that little snippet. But I really thought the Brooklyn Nets were going to go with Darius Acuff. But again, get a great player in Mikal Brown. I know a lot of speculation was happening with him where his draft pick would be due to his back injury that he was having. But he says he's great. He's good to go. And so, great pickup for the Brooklyn Nets. That just was kind of like a surprising pick for me. I was for sure thinking they were going to go with Darius Acuff. But that goes to the next pick with the Sacramento Kings at the 7th pick where they drafted Darius Acuff. And so, they don't really have a point guard there. It's kind of been back and forth. I honestly thought Russell Westbrook was the Kings' most consistent player last season. Again, that Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan tandem just has not worked wherever they have gone. And the Kings were one of the worst teams in the league last season. So, Darius Acuff, I like this pick for them for one, because he's going to get to shine. He's going to get to show all of his talents, out there in Sacramento. I know they're still trying to figure out what Domantas Sabonis is going to do. That's going to be something that we'll see in the upcoming weeks, with the free agency luring, or we're going to see any more big trades. So, Darius Acuff to the Sacramento Kings, which I think was a great pick for them. Now, at the number 9 pick, we got Kingston Flemings out of Houston. I love Kingston's game. Definitely a great defender, super athletic, super baby face. So doesn't look that tough on the court. Very well spoken too. I listened to an interview he had pre-draft, and he's just very well spoken young man. But boy is a dog. He's a straight dog. And so I'm excited to see Kingston down there in Atlanta, see what he brings to that young team. Atlanta was one of the best teams in the second half of the season after that Jonathan Kuminga trade, as well as the Trae Young trade moving forward over to Washington. Atlanta was really good, and I honestly thought they had the potential to beat New York. And, outside of the one game that the San Antonio Spurs won in, the NBA Finals, the only team to beat the Knicks in this playoffs were the Atlanta Hawks 2 games. The series was tied 2-2 at one point, and then the Knicks just tapped in. And so it was a really good chance. I'm expecting the Atlanta Hawks to make a major jump after the camaraderie that they built. And I think adding Kingston Flemings to that lineup, especially defensively, is going to be a huge pickup for the Atlanta Hawks moving forward. All right. And for the 10th pick, we are going to talk about this. Braden Burries out of Arizona. Very good player. I love Braden Burries' game. I watched him throughout the entire NCAA tournament, and he looked real good. I loved everything that he brought to Arizona, but I love even more going to Milwaukee. I'm sorry, that was the number 9th pick. We're actually, let me back up real quick. I'm so sorry. The 10th pick went to the Dallas Mavericks. Let me backtrack. Went to the Dallas Mavericks, and they had Morez Johnson Jr., and he was a really strong force for, in every game that he played in. Every game that he played in, he was a really strong force. So I thought Dallas really got a really good player, played for Michigan, very athletic guy. And I love this pick also because for those of you all who don't know or may not know, Dusty May, the coach from Michigan, just recently took the head coaching job for the Dallas Mavericks. So he has just really just come back, with his coach. He's staying with his coach from college. And so, Morris Johnson Jr., great pickup for the Dallas Mavericks. And then now to the 11th pick, we're talking about Braden Burries to the Milwaukee Bucks, which I thought was a really good pickup for them. I think he can bring, good backup point guard presence, and he might even be able to come in and provide great point guard presence in his first year, especially with all the different, the different moves that Milwaukee has made recently, getting rid of Giannis Antetokounmpo and, bringing on Tyler Hero, Jaime Jaquez, and Khalil Ware. And also just, I just said I was going to do the top 10 picks, but another pickup that the Milwaukee Bucks had was Nate Ament, which is one of the players I was really looking forward to watching moving forward in this draft. I love Nate Ament's game, can stretch the floor, very elusive, kind of frail, but, look at Giannis his rookie year. So not saying he's going to turn into a Giannis, but just look at what happened with that. And so, it's a real great draft. I'm only going over the top 10 picks today, but before, we get off of this, this show, I am going to talk about who I thought won and who's going to make the biggest impact immediately on their team. But before I do that, we're going to do one more commercial. For those of you I don't know, I just released a book recently called Torment Me No Longer, and I have a quick commercial for you all. So pay attention to this commercial, and it'll be right back. My story is just one of many. Through the secrecy, through the pain, through the torment, I truly did not believe there was a way to get out of this. But with the help of the Holy Spirit, the love of Jesus, and the desire to be set free, the Lord would reach down and pull me up to this thing called freedom. So I'm here to tell you today Purity is not lost. Freedom is obtainable. So buckle up because the journey's already begun.
Look here, it's a brand new year, but the same old me, I already know I'm coming.
Yes, yes. Torment me no longer, exposing the unseen dangers, destruction of pornography. This is something that needs to get out, that people need to talk about. So you can find my book on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, or where books are sold, or my publisher, ChristianLivingBooks.com. Again, that is ChristianLivingBooks.com. Again, my book, Torment Me No Longer, is out and available now, exposing the unseen destruction of pornography. All right. So let's talk about the wins and losses of the NBA draft real quick. I thought, even though he went number two, I think Darren Peterson, granted what his availability is, I know at Kansas he did have some availability issues where he was hurt, and there's a lot of speculation like, will he be available? And I know Stephen A earlier today was talking about like, will he be available? The reason AJ DeBonsa was number one pick is simply because he was available and he showed up. So I don't know the back ends of everything. There's always rumors or speculations of stuff, but I do believe Darren Peterson will immediately have an impact on the Utah Jazz, especially like at the lineup I mentioned earlier. You have Keontae George, Darren Peterson at the two, Ace Bailey in his second season. He's gotten experience under his belt. Of course, Lauri Markkanen, all-star. Jaren Jackson Jr. That's like JJJ. Ooh, goodness. All-star. So you have veteran presence, but you also have very young, great talent there. So I think Darren Peterson definitely will probably have the most impact immediately on his team, more than I think the other freshmen of the NBA this year will. I think Cameron Boozer as well will have a great impact because Memphis is just trying to figure it out there. They don't have too many notable players that are making a name like that. Of course, again with John Morant, we don't know what that situation is, but I think the opportunity for Cameron Boozer is very high for him to promote and show off his skills in that. And then the other one, again, as I mentioned earlier, Darius Acuff Jr., I think he's really going to have the opportunity to really show the type of player he is. Again, one of the best scoring point guards that we saw last year. He's gotten a lot of different comparisons, such as that of Allen Iverson, Stephon Marbury, and those are great people to be connected to and also, compared with. So I think those are the few people that I think will have the greatest impact immediately when we're talking about who is going to impact the game and impact their team the most. So, but I do believe with Darren Peterson, in Utah and just Utah trying to get back to a winning culture. We haven't really seen Utah like that since, Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. But, prior to that, it was Darren Williams and Carlos Boozer in that time. And then prior to that, of course, you had the Stockton Malone era. So Utah is just desperate to get back to a winning culture. But I do believe they have pieces to really, get back to a winning season. Will they make the playoffs? I'm not sure. But do they have the talent to? If they put it all together and if they all play well together, absolutely, they sure do. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen in Utah this year. I'm excited to see the impact that Darren Peterson will have. Really excited to see Darius Acuff. He was one of my favorite players this season. So those are the two that I definitely have, that will make the most impact. I'm excited to see Cameron Boozer and the impact that he has. But again, not ruling out AJ DeBonsa in that Washington Wizards team over there. I mean, they have a really good team, and I honestly think, granted that health stays healthy, I really do believe that they will make the playoffs next year. So we'll definitely see what happens with that. But in the meantime, that is just the top picks that I have for the top 10, top 11 picks that I went over as far as the NBA draft this year. Of course, my Nuggets draft Terrace Reed Jr. out of UConn, which I thought that was a great pick. Thought it was a great pick. And then they traded him about 10 seconds later. So don't know what's going on with Denver. We're trying to figure that out. But I just pray for my Nuggets and hopefully they will do something. don't know. Just praying for, health for Aaron Gordon, of course, Peyton Watson. I would love to see them keep Valanciunas again. I know there's rumors that they might release him and let him go on his $10 million contract to free up some space. But I would love for them to keep him and use him better than they did this past season. And so that's just my personal Nuggets take. As y'all know, I'm a huge Nuggets fan. So that's just my personal take on that. But this is the Spell Basketball Podcast with Aslan Williams. Thank y'all for tuning in today. Again, please, 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 please. Are you listening to me? Say please 4 times, right? Please do not forget to like and subscribe. I would gladly appreciate you all. I mean, you all have just been such a blessing, and I appreciate all the likes. I appreciate the comments. I appreciate the banter. I appreciate the constructive criticism. I appreciate all of it. But again, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And we'll be back soon. I know Summer League starts in a couple of weeks, so we'll be covering that. Tomorrow, I will be really covering and getting back started with the WNBA, and there's just too much that we need to cover. And I apologize for not coming on here talking about it as much as I should, but W is popping right now. And but report with that, Kelsey Plum is out for at least 4 weeks with a leg injury, so we're gonna miss her because Kelsey been balling this year, like straight up. So we're gonna hop on here and talk about that tomorrow. But this is the Spell Basketball Show with your host Aslan Williams. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to share this channel with whoever you might like to. All right. Aslan Williams, stats, facts, and all that. Y'all have a blessed day. All right. See y'all tomorrow.